Alright, so this is KSP, and this is one of my more scientifically accurate builds, I suppose. It's kind of hard to be scientifically accurate in KSP. You kind of just have to go with the program as it is. Like, this is obviously too far off the ground, but hey, every little foot gets you closer into orbit, right? So we have a several stage to orbit vehicle here. We have these two tanks off on the side. These are liquid fueled. Are going to, via this hose right here, are going to feed this main tank here with fuel as they have boosters. So on launch here, we have all of these boosters are going to go ahead and ignite, and these two will be the first to drop off. We call it asparagus staging here in KSP. And then after that, these two will run dry over here, and they will detach. After that, we have this big middle tanker here that will detach from here, and there's a second engine hiding underneath here, which will propel the rest of this vehicle to its destination. So this is designed to be a remote drone application. So there's no people aboard, and that's probably a good thing considering this is relatively unstable because the top is just so heavy. Because I've made what's under here, you'll see in a minute, is fairly complicated. So let's just get going here. Ignite. Right, so it's important that you know the orientation of this bubble in respect to this rocket. So pushing D on the keyboard actually gets me to go sideways from that perspective, but it would be pushing forward from this perspective. So this is the front of the rocket here, and we're cycling off SAS because you saw that humongous wobble going on there. You can see the little RCS jets. It's trying to compensate for vibrations in the system, but it does so in such a way that it actually makes it a lot worse. So this is very much a human-controlled effort at this point. And we can go ahead and take off infinite fuel. That was just to make sure we get up nice and high. So we can cycle that off. So now you can see the fuel going down. Normally these would have been about empty by now, but I don't want to bore people by not making it high enough. So we cheated a tiny little bit. This is all for fun anyway. Quite like the blue and purple here. So we're doing a turnover, gravity turn, as we get up, way up here. Kerbin is 1/3 or 1/6 the size of Earth, so obviously this is going to go a whole lot faster. And you can see these tanks are starting to glow orange, which means they're about to overheat. So it's a good thing that they're about to run out of fuel and we're going to ditch them. That was actually kind of, I want to say calculated, but I think that's giving me too much credit. I just knew how long they would burn before they could put it. So those are dead. So now we're hitting spacebar, and they disappear. There they go. You can see they had little boosters on their sides to make sure that they separated correctly from the main fuselage here. Well, it's not a tank, whatever you want to call it. The same little boosters on this as well. So as soon as I run out, now I'm only running at a half throttle because this thing is so top heavy that it will have a tendency to, well, bad things will happen. So we're going to turn over completely now. We're essentially in space at this point. Very little atmosphere is affecting us, so these fins aren't going to do anything, which is why we have RCS ports all along this thing with obligatory RCS tanks, because I had nowhere else to put them. And KSP has limitations on parts and pieces. So now these tanks are about to run out, so we're going to throttle down just a little bit, ditch those, throttle up, and away we go. Now this tank is getting a little hot, so I won't run this at full either, and we'll just use this to nicely cruise and try and put ourselves into a decent orbit, which we will check here. So 100 apoaps is pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the engine here. Then we're going to time warp ourselves a little ways up to the apoaps. Before we get there, we're going to put ourselves a maneuver node, and we're going to stretch this out to a nice, try and get it symmetrical, though it doesn't 100% matter. So that is going to give us in 50 seconds, or actually 10 seconds. Speaking of which, we got to hit this blue node. So let me get over there. So you want to line up with this blue node here. And as soon as this goes off, then we're going to throttle up. There we go. So we're going to try and stay on that blue dot and burn for the allotted time of 37 seconds as this counts down. Now, KSP tends to be off about these things, so you do have to kind of eyeball it. You can see the acceleration of meters per second is going down, but you kind of have to check this more than anything else. Because as you do this, the node will move. As you can see, it's not where it was before. And you have to try and follow it as best you can. We're getting down there, so we're going to throttle down because we do not want to overshoot. So you can see it taking off there, and you kind of want to try and follow it as best you can. But sometimes it'll just go shooting off, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, and we want this one to be an acceptable height. That one's already high enough. 85 is good enough. So there we are. So now we're into Kerbin orbit, right? And that is just about dead. So we don't really need it anymore. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of the big tanker. There we go. I'm gonna wait a second here. It starts coming out very slowly, so I'm going to help it along just a tiny bit. There we go. Bye, booster. It's quite a familiar look, actually, from the old Apollo missions. Bye. Alright, so now we have this. And inside, we're going to show you what we have here. There goes the fairing. Now, see, this is just too cool, I'm sorry. The fairing decoupling plus the booster sitting back there. Now, technically speaking, that booster should have been decoupled before I got into orbit, because now this thing is going to stay up here with me, and you don't want that. However, it's KSP, again, so we get to cut some corners. Now, this thing here, you have to forgive me with these little fuel rails here. It's a KSP bug. These are supposed to be attached to these. And you'll see how they line up here in a minute. But first, what we want to do is we want to land on land. So we are going to add another maneuver node. Now, from this point, we would go ahead and shoot ourselves off to the Mun or Minmus, or heck, even an asteroid if we wanted to, or any of the other number of objects in the solar system. But for the purposes of this, we're going to go ahead and cancel this node here. There goes the fairing. And we're going to add ourselves another one and just essentially land back on Kerbin. We could try and land as close, this right here, this little is where we took off from. So we could try and land as close as possible to that. Now, obviously, we'd probably start doing a burn way over here, but again, this is KSP and we have way more than enough fuel, and the gravitational pull of this planet is a lot less. So we can get away with a whole lot of things that normally we wouldn't be able to. So let's go ahead and do like this. Move this there. So now this shows us exactly lining up to land right back where we came from. But that won't happen because when we hit this node and we start decelerating, what will happen is we'll start entering the atmosphere and we're going to get a whole lot of friction, and it's going to slow us down a lot more than this can ever calculate for. So I want to put it way out here, and the re-entry process should slow me down about that much. And this is one of those things where you just have to eyeball it because, well, KSP won't tell you. So we're going to go ahead and go and fast forward time and watch ourselves go whee, and we'll do a full orbit here. Oh, and that's another thing. As you can see, Kerbin's rotating in respect to your orbit. So actually this needs to be way over here, because by the time I get back around, Kerbin will have rotated itself into it, and I probably will have to adjust it again. As you can see, the ending point is now getting closer and closer to where we want it to be. These are all things that you have to kind of factor in, and oftentimes new people, they don't factor it in, and they wonder why, it's not going the way that they wanted it to. So I'm going to have to adjust this again. And that's a reason I really like KSP, is because it it does incorporate a lot of the big factors that you have to consider when talking about space travel. You know, it's just not easy. I mean, you have to incorporate relativity and time dilation into these things that people just don't think about. All right, so right now I'm going to turn off SAS and try and get myself maneuvered over to the node, which is going to be pointed here at this blue arrow. And that is going to allow me to line up with the angle that I have to push to decelerate to there. Okay, which is basically going to be that. This is our, you have two green nodes. One of them is for moving forward, and one of them is for moving backwards. So this, if I go for this green X here, it's pointing the exact opposite direction of where I'm actually moving. So now we're going to turn on the SAS and stabilize ourselves in that little dot. And then we're going to get a little bit closer. T minus 50, 40, 30, 20, 19, okay, 8, okay, there we go. We're ready. We are ready. 1, burn. There we go. Alright, so now, as cool as that is to watch, we have to watch this. We have to actually watch where we're ending up here in respect to this. And what we can do is, I would prefer, we're going to go ahead and close that, is we're going to land way out in the ocean, yeah? But when we start decelerating, we're going to lose a lot of that speed. And we can always slow ourselves down more, but trying to flip around and boost ourselves farther this way, what we don't want to do is we don't want to land over here. We'd rather have it pointed somewhere this way, and we can slow ourselves down as it goes to get ourselves to land more vertically up and down. Of course, that's not exactly efficient, and it's not something you can really do in the real world, but it's what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and put out the brakes. So this will help slow us down. Let's slow down a little bit more. Okay. A little bit more. Alright. So now let's go ahead and time warp just a little bit. Okay. This is kind of a process where you have to try and find what you're doing. So I think we're up a little bit too high, so I'm going to slow ourselves down some more. A little bit more. Alright. So at this point, now we're going to start at about the 60,000 meter range is where we really start getting into the atmosphere. And we got our air brakes out here. Try and make sure we slow ourselves down. There's KSP right there. So I think we're probably going to overshoot this. Unless I slow myself down a little bit more. Alright, so you're going to see some rapid deceleration here. Really, really quite fast. If we ever get into the atmosphere, I'm coming down. And this is really what you want, is to be as gentle and as slow as possible. Trying to guide a rocket ship in backwards. I kind of feel like SpaceX at the moment, trying to re-land myself like this. It's not easy, but yeah, we're gonna have to do full burn here. All right, keep bringing it in, bringing it in, bringing it in, bringing it in, bringing it in. It looks like we didn't even experience any atmospheric effects because we brought it in so gently. Ooh. Okay, so now we're top heavy, so now we're gonna have to do some dramatic stuff here. Oh, we're on fire. It's fine. It's fine. Everything will be fine. Well, I can't control it while it's re-entering, so I just have to let it do its thing, and hopefully I can regain control as soon as we're through the bulk of it. You can see the deceleration we're going through here is quite extreme. Look at the G's we're pulling. Oh, this would most assuredly break up in the real world, but alright, we're gonna, come on, bring it back around. Can I get this underneath? No, probably not. Alright, we're gonna stage this thing. Oh god! It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Alright. Alright, we got some extra engines here just for a situation like this. Now if I can get ourselves pointed over at KSP, we have parachutes. Okay. Okay. This is about as close as I can get, I think. We'll try and get over there if I deploy the parachutes. This, by the way, is a heat shield. So technically speaking, when I come back down, I'm not supposed to have that on there. It's just supposed to be this. And that's supposed to take the brunt of the re-entry there. But, come on. I can't get any control out of this thing. So, I'm going to have to... Oh, God. Well, that didn't go well. There goes our... What should have been what we were on there. If I can focus in on this thing. So we were supposed to have been on here. Yeah, see, this is a glitch. You see how there's parts hovering like that? That just happens to be KSP breaking us like that. And that'll happen on occasion, but then you come across things that you never expect in real world too. So this is how it's supposed to land, but with the rest of the stuff intact instead of flying down there. KSP, you aggravate me sometimes. But so this was supposed to be a mining drone, and I don't believe I can control this anymore. But these legs would come down and land there, and these arms would deploy and mine for fuel and other such things. But we got pretty close. So what I'm going to do is we're going to watch this crash real quick, and then after that I'll do a really quick takeoff and deploy of how it should look when I come back down. And we can see the functionality of this thing when KSP is not killing us. Yeah. Alright, let's revert to launch real quick. KSP can take a while to load sometimes. Alright, so it's the same rocket. And we're just going to do all of this real quick. Get up to a decent altitude here. And then we're going to ditch all this stuff, and it's going to explode in this fire and whatnot. But, alright, so deploy, deploy, deploy. I'm going to try and get away from this stuff a little bit. Alright, so now we're kind of moving away from it all, and we'll land out there somewhere. So now what we're going to do is we're going to deploy the fairing there, and we're going to get rid of that bottom part, and we're going to let our legs down. I'm going to hit G, there we go. So those are our legs, and then we're going to hit our parachutes here. There we go. So fairing comes off, just like this. Now unfortunately it's a little top heavy, so at the moment, why are you not, there we go. So parachutes and KSP are a little wonky. As soon as we get down to the ground, they will function correctly and they'll flip me over the way I should. Oh god, I'm littering the ground with explosions. So these parachutes will deploy at, I think I set the altitude at 500 feet, which is obviously ridiculous, but again, KSP. So it'll start turning over here as soon as they start getting traction. Any second now, 3, 2, 1, and there they go. So now we flip back over. We're going to put out the air brakes just because we can. Alright, so I can't really control where we're about to land. I hope I don't land on this bump here. I think we'll be fine. Whee! Alright, so I'm going to throttle up just a tiny bit. Why these engines are not working, I don't know. There we go. So, now we have this. So now what we can do is we can do our little solar panels, just like that. We can turn them on. So this is going to be in a remote middle of nowhere kind of planet, and it's going to have to self-sustain essentially. So we have this thing that'll turn a lot of minerals that we mine from the ground, which is about what we're going to do right now. But it requires electrical energy, which we have to monitor fairly closely. So you can see the electrical charge there, and we can basically only mine during the day. So we're going to start mining here, and as we do, we're filling up this tank here. I kind of halfway cheated. I clipped a monopropellant tank and a resource tank inside themselves. It's kind of the only way to make anything reasonable sized, because you can't really customize the parts so much. So this is my little mining drone that can go to anywhere and everywhere. It was one of my latest projects, and then of course it has a couple sensors on it that we can transmit data with back to Kerbin. So this is my little construct here. So this is one of many things that I've made. Let's bring out a couple of other things. Let's go ahead and bring out, let's see, what else do we have here? I can show you the gigantic mother base is what I've been calling it. Unfortunately, it has a lot of FPS issues because KSP is not so efficient with, there it is, less parts. I think the less parts one will be good. It has a lot of issues with certain parts collision and whatnot like that, make it extremely CPU and FPS intensive. So we have the mother base here, and believe it or not, this thing actually does fly, which is a testament to KSP's aerodynamic system. So it has a lot of the same things on it as that last one did, but essentially what it is, it's kind of a mobile garage. So can't help it, my love of cars shows through. So we have here our landing stretch, which is these, so raise and lower that, but we also have these, which are on this one. So they're called loading bays. So what we can do is we can drop these down, just like this. And they're a bit like car lifts. And you can drive on and be carried up in like a little elevator. And on top of all the rovers that I built are always a coupler node to attach to that, so they can refuel off of this. So let's go ahead and we'll check this out in real world, just to see. Warning: the FPS is going to drop quite dramatically. It's probably going to take a minute to load up as well. All right, so you can see it's even too big for the launch pad. It's just too large. It overhangs, right? So let's go ahead, and what we can do is we can go ahead and decouple this. Right? That frees up this thing. We're going to switch to it. We're going to hit the brakes to make sure it doesn't fall off. And then we're going to switch back to this, and we're going to lower down. Now I could make each one of these loading bays move individually, of course, but it just ends up being simpler to do them all at once. And what I got to be super careful of is another bug here is if I touch the ground too quickly with these things, then the entire launching pad will explode. So I need to very gently, all the way down there, and then I'm going to lower the entire structure down until it touches, and hopefully it doesn't explode. Alright, that looks like I'm touching. Alright, so now I can go ahead and EVA him. And again, for time constraints, we have a nice ladder to come all the way down, or instead we can just, he's fine. He's a Kerbal. He'll live. Let's go. Okay. So now we can go ahead and, normally we'd of course put him in the thing before we launch it, but we don't have time for that. So we're going to get him, oh come on. Get in there. There we go. Alright, so now he's in control of my rat rod rover here. And there's another bug. This should be bent this way, but unfortunately KSP is freaking out on me. I actually spent quite a lot of time making this look like some type of V8 monster. As you can see the headers and whatnot coming out. Like it even has, you know, intakes for carburetors and whatnot. But brake, 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 brake. There we go. So we have my little rat runner. So that I actually did fly to the moon, and again, it had so many FPS issues that it was mostly unusable. So I have plans in the work to redesign that using larger parts, but fewer, to reduce the FPS problems. But let's have some little rocket boosters on here so we can have a little bit of fun here. If we let's turn around here, and there's a little ramp we can go up, just for fun. We can't do science all day long. Sometimes we're gonna have some fun. Woo! All right, a little ramp right there. And this is actually a legitimate test that I do for a lot of the things that I build. I do stress testing on them to see, because they're not just going to land perfectly every single time in any situation. They're going to have to deal with bumps and unstable landing conditions and whatnot. And so I do crap like this. Whee! Oh well, that didn't go so well. Although, why is it? Okay, well, apparently, it decided to turn off grab. Oh, I broke the game. Oh, well, bye, Rover. Okay, well, so that's that. Let's go revert flight. Let's see, one more thing that I've made here that's worth showing. Right, let's load up. Oh, I guess I could show these real quick. This is a little hovering fighter drone. I was being silly and testing that out with. Leave this. Yeah. So this is something that's quite neat. So my dad used to work on the ABL, and they just happened to import this ABL laser, which I just thought was so cool. But what's really neat is this has some reaction wheels in it, and what it'll do is if you put these fins out and you know what, I'll just show you real quick. If you do it fast enough. Alright, so the reaction wheels are going. So I'm using electricity actually to stand perfectly still on the tip of this. Right? So now what we can do is we can turn those on, and we can extend. I believe I have solar panels on these. Do I not? Yes, I do. So I extend these solar panels here. So this should generate enough electricity to keep the batteries charged, to keep the reaction wheels going, and so inevitably it should just stay up like this for forever, just sitting like this. And of course this is a gigantic laser of doom, so you're supposed to put like a grid of these essentially everywhere. I've been experimenting with their weapon system, and it's quite fun, but it's kind of limited since this is a single player game. So the other thing I was going to show here was, where are you? You know, it's over here. There you are. Is my pod racer. Yep, pod racer from Star Wars. Looks like one, and it kind of flies like one, to be honest. It's very unstable, but at the same time, it is actually flyable. You have to have quite a bit of skill in order to use it. But you can do it. Oh, jeez. This is supposed to take off on that long, from the runway, not from this, but we improvise. So I'm going to throttle these things up. Oh, for this thing you have to, because it's so wonky. You have to cheat a little bit with infinite fuel. So there we go. There we go. Oh, well, apparently there was a black hole in the way. Well, it didn't go so well. Hold on. I can't, it's better than that. I can't let it go at that. We're gonna have to go to the VAB over here. A lot of the videos that I've done were for basic people. Unfortunately, they all got deleted off of Twitch, which was a shame. I had quite a few people that actually liked them. Let's launch this again. And I would go through some of the basic orbital mechanics with people. A lot of people would pop into my stream onesie twosies, and they wouldn't understand, you know, why it is that when you're closer in on an orbit, you move faster, and as you move slower, you actually move farther out from a body and whatnot like that. So let's go ahead and alright, so we're going to get rid of those things. And then we can do an internal view here. And it actually, you can see it wobble. It's quite scary to fly, actually. It flies as ridiculous as it looks.